Good morning, everyone, and welcome to IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group session in this General Assembly meeting. I'm sure that you are all having a good time and you enjoyed the lunch session. I heard that it was very crowded and there were lots of questions and discussions, so that's a great thing. Today, we are going to have a session mostly about the problems that are faced by women in astronomy, all sorts of efforts which is being done all over the world to support the career of women in astronomy. And with this, we are going to have the first talk from the former president of the IAU, Professor Ewine van Dishoeck. And she will be talking about women in astronomy and the IAU past, present, and future, because she has been really very instrumental in progressing this Women in Astronomy Working Group of the IAU. So Professor Ewine, please take over.
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much. And it's good to be here and to be speaking to you in this session. If you can bring up my slides, then we can get started. What I'm going to do here is actually tell you a little bit more about IAU, because I thought that not everybody that is present here actually knows about IAU. And also a little bit of history, a bit on where we stand now. And then at the very end, I'm going to give some statistics actually on career progression in the Netherlands, where we actually have followed 600 PhDs over the last 20 years. All right, finally. Okay, good. Here we have the slides. All right, good. So what is the IAU? For those of you that were not here in the first week, basically we are the worldwide union of all the professional astronomers. That means PhD level and above. And we basically promote and safeguard astronomy in all of its aspects. And that's much more than just research these days. This is also communication, education, and development. We are more than 100 years old, but it took almost a century to get the first female president. But we have now some 12,000 members with more than 100 different nationalities. Now, you become a member when you are basically on a trajectory for a permanent position, so tenure track or a staff member. So our statistics, at least up to recently, didn't include any junior members and certainly not any PhD students. We have increasing diversity, now thanks also to the junior members, of which some of you may be a member, but still, quite disappointingly, only 21.8% are women in the current statistics. Now, if you want to read more about the IAU and its offices, please go to our strategic plan. You can just Google it and download it. It tells you all about how the IAU is structured and what we are doing basically to increase diversity. How are we structured? We're actually structured in divisions and commissions and working groups. And in case you're not familiar with this ABC, etc., you've seen it on all the announcements. But here you see the full list of divisions. The first three are basically about facilities, education, fundamental astronomies. And then D through J are organized by scientific topics. And each of these divisions can have commissions and working groups. Now, just to plunge into some statistics, and these are the current division presidents. They are basically elected by the membership of that division, and any member can join as many divisions as you want. And what you see here already is the good news that now we have 5 out of 9 of these division presidents that are actually women. So the IAU has a number of working groups, as we've seen, more than 50, but there are some topics that we consider to be particularly important and that report directly to the executive committee, so the highest level, the president and the vice presidents, basically. And at the top of that is certainly the Women in Astronomy working group that you see over here. And you see also as part of our strategic plan, we promote the inclusive advancement of the field of astronomy in every country. And the actions that you see over here is especially also encourage and retain women and minorities in astronomy. And we've taken quite a number of actions of that. We have also a springboard to action that we have presented and that we encourage all of our national members to pay attention to. And there are actions both at IAU level and there are actions at the national level. Good, so that's where we stand now. But let's go a little bit back in history. 1928, so less than 10 years after the IAU was founded. This happened to be the General Assembly in my hometown in Leiden. And what you see here is lots and lots of men and a few women actually that are present that you see over there. Some of them could actually have been the partners of the astronomers sitting there. This was the executive committee. So this is basically the president and the vice president that make, and the general secretary that make up the executive committee. And they were all men. They're very famous men. I mean, you can see the sitter actually sitting there as the president of the IAU at that time. Now we turn forward to 1932, and it's more or less the same picture. The first IAU general secretary did not come until the 1970s. Now, the General Secretary is a very important position in the IAU. She or he basically does the bulk of the work of the IAU. And so Edith Müller was the first one. You are first an Assistant General Secretary, and then you are the General Secretary. Then it was also the first time that an Assistant Secretary was introduced, in this case, Nels Splinter. We move forward again a little bit in time. Here we are, the executive committee actually in Moscow, where already at least the meetings started to become a little bit more diverse. And this is also when we had the first female vice president of the IAU, which was Wilhelmina Iwanowska, a Polish stellar astronomy, again in the 1970s, 73 to 79. The second female vice president actually came from China. That's Madame Shuo Yi, and she is a very famous astronomer. She was very operational in getting also radio astronomy and the big telescopes near Shanghai operational and built. And so she was fantastic to have her really as a vice president, also in a time that there were actually quite a number of political tensions between China and the rest of the world. And now actually we have the second vice president from East Asia, Hyung-Sung Kang. And we are very happy. I mean, of course, you now all know her because she's the one who organized this fantastic General Assembly, but we are also happy that she is now on the executive committee as a vice president. So that's also an important one. So those are examples. Let's turn to numbers. So this is basically in 10 years been the statistics of IAU members. So what you see is we started in the 1990 with sort of at the level of 10%. And then what to me is always the most interesting but also discouraging aspect is that it then actually dropped. It dropped very considerably after the Second World War, and it kept dropping. It took a very long time until the 1990s before there is actually an upturn again. So there's clearly was a long period that primary men and very few women were actually appointed in staff positions at universities and institutes, etc. So we have some increase, but overall the fraction is still disappointingly low. And it will take some time because you're an IAU member for life, so it will take some time with 12,000 members for it to percolate the higher numbers. The younger generation is now healthily at some 35 to 40%. Incidentally, you can download all of these numbers. They are all on the web. You can just look at all of these plots directly. I like this particular figure that shows actually what the geographical distribution is. So to give you an indication, green is between 10 and 20% of female IAU members, still low. Blue is really low, then yellow and red start to become a little bit more healthy fractions. And you see the countries that were particularly low in terms of, that have large numbers of IAU members were, this is from 2015, were India and Japan. And now what you also see is that Northern Europe, North America, Australia, they are all in the green category. The more healthy fractions of female staff really are in the Southern European countries and in Latin America. And when you go to 2018, you see now that some countries have actually turned color, which is good. They have turned color in the right direction. But still, there's a lot of green that we really would like to see at least turn yellow pretty soon. Incidentally, South Korea has some 200 IAU members, of which 20% is female. So I think they are just touching on the yellow color here in this figure. Here is the largest countries that have the most IAU members, 400 members and above. China, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, UK, and United States. And you see where they are now. France, a healthy 26%, or at least more, and Italy, 31%. But some of the others still disappointingly low. Good, and this is just to show by age that if you look at this column, that it's really in the age category up to 40 years, that is now sort of at the 35% level. It's really at the older generation that is still skewed very much towards the male category. So what have we been doing as the IAU? Well, basically, we have been taking a number of actions to promote women. First of all, more women in high IAU positions. This working group, Women in Astronomy, reporting directly to the executive committee so that we can take action where needed. And then actions to attract more women and making them more visible. So speakers at symposia, the Women in Astronomy lunch that you just enjoyed, mentoring, schools, junior members, and then we also participated in the gender gap study that was mentioned earlier. So, at the highest levels, so it took the union almost a century to get the first female president, Katalin Cesarski, but since then we fortunately now have had 3 female presidents in a row, Silvia, Deborah, and myself. And also the officers, so these are basically the daily running of the IAU, the president-elect, general secretary, and assistant general secretary, and this was in the 2015 to 2018 period, the first time that the office was actually dominated by females, and that has also continued since. Also more female assistant general secretaries, Jacqueline Bergeron, following on Edith Müller, Teresa Lago, and now we have actually Diana Worrell also in office. So working our way there, also making the vice presidents more diverse, typically 3 out of 6, so 50-50, and then indeed the division presidents, typically 35 to 50%. So again, improving at the highest levels. This is already a quite old graph from about a decade ago when we were collecting the statistics on female speakers at IAU symposia. We really insist that all the IAU symposia have a very well gender-balanced organizing committee, and also that the invited and contributed speakers are well-balanced. So this was a period when typically both the invited and contributed we were aiming at least at the 35 to 40% level. Now actually some symposia are fully 50-50. Others are still have some more work to do, and we are keeping an eye on those. The Women in Astronomy lunches, you've seen them already as being very effective to discuss various issues. International schools for young astronomers, these are basically at master and early PhD level, where again we try to have as much of a balance actually as possible, both in terms of gender diversity, but also of course of country diversity. Our PhD prizes that we have in each division each year. I think some of you are actually here because you won a PhD prize. Congratulations. And that's deadline is December 15 each year. And again, there we have a very good balance over the 5 years that we've done that. And the same holds for the Gruber Fellowships for young astronomers, which actually get research funding. The proposal deadline is March 31st each year. And again, we have had a good balance here among various brilliant young astronomers. In the context of 100 years of the IAU, we actually had a number of activities of women and girls in astronomy. In 2019, which was our anniversary year, we had over 260 activities in 70 countries, reaching more than 200,000 girls. So that was an effective way of sort of mounting an event worldwide. And we're trying to do this now also on an annual basis. And here you see some other effects also on teaching that we had here of gravity in schools here, because it was also the year of the centenary of the expedition that proved Einstein's theory of general relativity, the solar eclipse. And that was also an effective way of teaching young people about astronomy. Very successful is our Telescopes for All program that gets small telescopes across the world and really sort of inspires young children in the sky. Okay, so to summarize this part, fraction of women in the IAU is still low, disappointingly. Takes a long time to remedy that, even if you would start to appoint only female members now, it would take still more than a decade to get to, say, a 30% level. The fraction of women in high IAU positions is fortunately now high. We have actions to attract more women and making them more visible, and suggestions from your side are certainly welcome. Women can grow within the IAU to leadership positions. Take that opportunity. By being active in a working group, commission, division steering committees, organizing IAU symposia. That's a way to get noticed, and then you can basically grow there to leadership positions. And then we have various other actions to increase diversity, not just based on gender, but also otherwise. Good. In my last few minutes, I would like to give you a few statistics, because I think one of the aims of this meeting is also to basically get more numbers. It's very hard to get numbers. But in the Netherlands, actually, as part of the Netherlands Research School for Astronomy, NOVA, we collected statistics on some 600 PhD students since 2000. The Netherlands has only 4 universities where astronomy is done, but it's has a very active PhD program, a very high level, and so we have really PhD students from all over the world come to the Netherlands for their PhDs. So overall statistics for the Netherlands University in 2021, we have about 26% female staff. Postdocs are sort of at 30%, and PhD students that are at 35 to 40% female. So what you'll see is statistics binned in 5 years period. So first of all, this is all the PhDs, irrespective of gender. Where do they go, actually? So the blue one is actually, the line is after they get their PhD, do they continue in astronomy or not? And then the red bar is where they are now. So you see it going from 2000 to 2004, so that's people that got their PhD more than 20 years ago, to the most current PhD recipients from 2020 and 21. So obviously most of those are still on their first postdoc. But those in the early 3 bins should be already have transitioned to permanent positions. So what you see is that typically 70 to 80% of our PhDs stay in astronomy for their first postdoc. Then 20 to 30% transition to another career after their first postdoc, somewhere along the line. Exactly where that happens, we don't know, but somewhere along the line they do that. And of course, that's all perfectly fine. There are good reasons why people prefer to have a position outside of academia. Academia is quite tough these days to be there, and we find that many of our PhD students are actually very happy also in positions outside of astronomy. Now here's the gender diversity, so again the same bins, but now the first job female-male, and then the current job female-male. And what you need to see is that basically there's not much difference, certainly not statistically speaking, in the heights of these different bars. I think our uncertainty given the numbers is of the order of sort of 5%. And so you see that basically the trends for male and female are very similar for as far as we can see. The largest difference comes in the 2010 to 2014 bin, but I'm not sure yet that that is actually statistically significant. So that basically means that there doesn't seem to be sort of a leaky pipeline or a significant attrition of female astronomers along the line. Note that these people actually, that of course we are tracking people that get a position in astronomy anywhere in the world. Only very few get a position in the Netherlands because we are a small country, we have only a very limited number of staff positions. So this is basically tracking where do our PhD students end up anywhere in the world. Okay, so this is actually the same statistics now is shown in a slightly different way for only the people that say inside astronomy, and then blue is male and red is female, and then what you need to compare is basically the heights of the various bars on the left side with the right side, so 0.33 you have to compare with 0.3 and 0.20 is 0.21. And so you see again that there is no significant trend actually in these numbers, which is at least encouraging to see. Where do our PhD students go? Well, this is for the 2000 to 2019 category. In that category, 52% stayed in astronomy. Of the 48% that is outside astronomy, actually an increasing number of them go into data science. So that is a trend that we now see, especially over the last 5 years, that an increasing number of people actually end up in data scientist type positions. Okay, we're also trying to track our postdocs. That is still ongoing work. It's not yet complete. Some data are still missing. But typically, what we have seen with the postdocs is that about 65% of them are still in astronomy in either a permanent or a temporary position at this very moment. And again, an increasing number are actually going into data science. Okay, so that's actually what I wanted to show you. I had a few lessons to young scientists that I also shared at the tables that I was on Friday and on Monday, because I know many of you are often stressed. How do I have to do so many different things in order to make myself visible? My advice always to you is it's better to do one thing really well than to do a few things, than to do many things on sort of an average level. Make sure that you become the expert in one area to get noticed. Be passionate about your science, seize opportunities. Sometimes things come on your way that you hadn't expected. For me, that was, for example, becoming IAU president. That's something I definitely did not envision, as being actually trained as a theoretical chemist. But it has been a wonderful experience to do so. Okay, good. So this is sort of what I wanted to share with you, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much. So it was a great talk, and we could get new statistics and new information about what's happening in the Netherlands with PhD postdoc students in astronomy. Do we have any questions for the speaker?
Yeah, come up and
Hi, thank you, Ewine, for a very nice review of the situation. You did mention that when the IAU introduced this junior member category, I mean, the numbers, there was a slight change, and I'm connecting this with the fact that you say also you showed that in the 20, I don't remember, I think it was the 20s to 30 years old, that's where you see a higher percentage. And I wonder...
We see up to 40, so from 25 to 40 age group, there we are 35 to 40%.
So first, there it's a bit of a comment like, you know, these are younger people who are still either graduate students or postdocs, so we really don't want to lose them to the leaky pipeline.
Exactly.
And I wonder also, because before there was not the junior member category.
Yeah.
But it kind of depended on each country if it was already very well established, because it didn't. I think the requirement was to have a few have papers. It was not necessarily. It depended on the country whether you needed to have a permanent position.
Exactly. So we take into account, or I should say, the membership committee who decides this takes that into account, that the situation for every country can be different. And in Europe and the US, this can be indeed one or more papers in a referee journal, but it can be different in other countries. So we take all of that into account in the recommendations that are being made for memberships.
It was more of a comment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, it's a very fair comment, and it's an important comment, because we don't want to lose those either.
Thanks, Ewine, for an excellent talk. As part of the working group from Mamta on my behalf, what are your suggestions for us to focus on?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I'd really like to get the statistics back. It's always hard to collect these statistics. I mean, getting these statistics for the Netherlands involved work by, we basically had help from a master's student who was busy for several months. And because you need to track down where people are. Those that stay in astronomy are easy because you can just check their publications. Those that are going outside astronomy, where they are, you have to go through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through whatever media you can find in order to track them down where they are. But it's giving us some very valuable insights, especially the longitudinal aspect that is very effective. So statistics are one thing, but then also especially what I found very useful in these as president of the IAU, of these world images as to these colors of how are the various countries doing. Of course, as the IAU, we don't have any power of decisions on appointments. That's the prerogative of the institute or the university in that particular country. But we can talk to national members and say, hey, your country could really do a little bit better, and maybe suggest some actions to take. For example, having a set of professorships just for women. I know that some countries that's controversial. In other countries, including my own country in the Netherlands, it has actually worked very well. So these are the kind of things that we can do is basically push and also showing just to them, compared with your neighboring countries or compared with the rest of the world, you're not doing that well. Try to do better. We had a very fruitful meeting, and maybe Silvia will refer to this, in India, in Pune, where, the first thing when we arrived as executive committee, we noticed that the board that had all the faces of the staff in the institute was all men. So that's, already an observation that you can make immediately. But then we also actually had a Women in Astronomy discussion that afternoon. And just having that discussion there as the executive committee triggered a lot of the colleges and institutes to look at their statistics and how they were doing. And we're seeing already, India is one of the countries that is certainly improving. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Camila. I'm doing my PhD at ISO. I'm not an IAU member because I'm doing my PhD, but I was wondering if working groups take new admissions, if new members to be involved in the actions, and how does it work to become, active in a working group?
Yeah, well, that's a good question because some of the working groups we want to keep small because they need to do work. And there's a well-known phenomenon that the larger the working group, it's more difficult to organize. So some of our what we call functional working groups are quite small. But on the other hand, the Women in Astronomy working group, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mamta and Priya, but I think everybody can basically sign up for that. No.
Okay, there are many other questions we have to. Okay. Yeah.
Hello, thank you so much. Just a quick question. So thank you so much for the overview and seeing so many women in leadership positions. Brought me a question if there's training opportunities that IAU offers for young astronomers, young students to learn about leadership and
Yeah, exactly.
skills.
So that's exactly why we have the junior member working group, and they have a number of sessions here that involve also training. Now, this year, because of COVID, the program is not as well developed as it would have been otherwise. But keep on an eye for 2024 in South Africa, where I think the program will be more developed. And in fact, prior to COVID, the previous leadership was actually planning to have also a 1 to 2 day special meeting only for the junior astronomers just before. We actually have gotten funding for it. Just if you go to the IAU webpage, just a couple of months ago, we got from the Isaac Simons Foundation funding for having such a meeting and also for organizing it, for bringing in some people from outside. So yeah, very much. We like to develop that further.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. This is the last question. You have very many questions in this talk, yeah. But we have to, go to next speaker. Thank you for the.
Yes, thank you very much.
So my apologies, I have to go to another meeting. So if you see me walking out, it's not because of lack of interest, but it's because I have to speak in the in the room next door. So I wish you a very good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, let's move over to the next speaker of the session, and that is Professor Silvia Torres Peimbert. She has been also the former president of the IAU, and she's going to talk about women participation in Latin American astronomy. So, Professor Silvia.
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me for this talk, and I will start by sharing my screen. Let's see how it works. And let's try this one. Okay. So in the first place, I should tell you that I'm very happy to be here with you. I am in Mexico City at 14 hours difference of what's happening in Busan. So it's difficult. It's midnight now here for me. But it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning. Let me tell you that it is well known that Latin American and Caribbean countries have very uneven distribution in many aspects, and astronomy is no exception. This region encompasses 564 million inhabitants of 33 countries. Okay, so this has a life of its own, sorry. I'm afraid I only have incomplete data from a few countries, but I will try to show them to you. At the IAU, let's start with IAU. There are 757 individual and junior members, we can see in this table, from the region, which correspond to 1.3 astronomers per million inhabitants. And it's only 6% of the IAU membership, so there are not very many. By the way, women of the region comprise 7% come on. This has a life of its own. I don't know how it got it. Women of the region comprise 7% of the female membership of the union. This lists all the countries that form part of the IAU. As I mentioned, there are 33 countries that are not part of the IAU, or we don't have members of them. The percentage, the overall percentage of women, in the region is of 27%, which is slightly higher than the overall percentage of IAU. This is something to be mentioned. This is the same distribution. This is the same distribution, male and female, of the different countries, but now I have listed them not in order, not in alphabetical order, but in order of which one have which one has the least, the most members in IAU. So we see that a few countries are the ones that are really contributing to IAU membership and probably to the astronomy membership as well. The number of females, as I mentioned, is 27%, and the number of females in the total IAU is of 22%. So Latin America is contributing to increase that, to raise that figure. And now I am here showing the same distribution now by proportion, and this of course gives us an idea of which are the countries that have more women and less women. I have to tell you that these are figures from 2005, where I grouped them by countries. I'm sorry, it's in Spanish, but it's an old slide. And you can see that by region, we had certainly different proportion of women by geographical region. And Latin American, which is the first on the left, had always been with large proportion of women. Now I will go country by country, and the figures are quite different because the data was given by different people, and it's very difficult to have it in unified conditions. Here in Argentina is the membership of Argentine Astronomical Association from 1960 to 2021. And you can see that the increase, there have been an increase, fortunately, an increase in astronomers from men and women. Both have increased, and the increase has been favorable to women because the difference has maintained itself. This figure is very important because it's listing the management positions in Argentina by gender. And here it's very interesting that from president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and some other positions. And you can see that the one that has been very, with high proportion of women has been the treasurer and the secretary. So, well, this is something that we know very often happens everywhere, that women are assumed to have a better management of having order for treasurer and secretary. So but not as much for president or vice president. That happens also in Argentina. Now, let's see. And this is a very interesting figure because talks about what are the grants and scholarships by gender. and how many were requested, how many were awarded, and how many were percentage respect to total scholarship awarded, and percentage respect to number of applicants of their gender. So it's very well balanced in Argentina, I think. It's wonderful. No, this one was already seen. And awards, how about awards? Well, you can see that it's skewed. In the Warszawski Prize, it's been even, but on the other prizes has been certainly more favored by men. So these are awards given by the same association, and they have not been the same. The conclusion that the Argentinian colleagues have given me is that the gender disparity has diminished in recent years, that there is no disparity in scholarships. For historical reasons, there is a significant disparity in directors of the society. There is no disparity in Warszawski Prize recipients. Men have preferentially obtained the highest prizes, and there is a marked asymmetry in power positions in favor of men. So this is nothing that surprises us, but it's interesting that it's also always present there. Now, we are going to move to Brazil, and let's make sure that I have the person. The statistics were obtained by Daniela Lázaro, and she was very generous in giving them to me. And they were the gender distribution, the institutes involved. She requested information of wherever institutes they have, and they said it's 16 institutes and 42 very small places. And you can see the permanent positions in public institutions, in private institutions, postdocs and visiting professors, PhD students, master students, and graduate students. The figures increase towards the younger people, as we know. That is the general trend everywhere. And we can see how many males, female, and what is the proportion at the different positions in Brazil. Now, this is, I put it in different coloring because we're talking about time variation in gender distribution by position from the last IAU General Assembly to this General Assembly. And there has been some changes. The yellow lines are from 4 years ago. The green lines are today. And the permanent positions in public institutions, in private postdocs, PhD, etc. They don't give figures for the graduate students from the previous presentation. And you can see that there is no significant change. Some have increased, some have decreased. The only important thing is that graduate students are really bringing out a good percentage of women. The young people are increasing, have a higher percentage of women. Now, leadership. There is a fellowship, there are fellowships in several countries like Brazil and in my own country that reward the productivity in research. And they have 5 categories. I will show you a few more. And even there's a special category for senior researchers that are no longer active, but that have been in the highest category for at least 10 years. And this is the position the productivity in research. This is the time variation in gender distribution for productivity in research. So productivity research and the qualification increases from the top down. The ones at the bottom are the best, are the highest prizes, I must say, at the highest recognition. And you can see that there have been changes in 4 years around here. And now they are the senior researchers is a new category, and the highest category, 1A, has increased in 2022. So that's very encouraging. Although Daniela Lázaro mentioned herself, not many changes have taken place in 4 years. We should not be surprised. 4 years is not a large time period. Okay. Now we go to Chile. Chile has had an enormous increase in astronomy for its geographical position, for the number of large telescopes that are installed there, which are, they have an enormous amount of telescope time and sites. And so they have, there's been a very important increase of astronomers in Chile. You can see that from 1984 to 2021, the increase has been from 3 to whatever. So it's very encouraging for all of us. We want to see the astronomers increase. And here they have the positions from full position to postdoc to PhD students to master's students. But they don't give us the proportion of women. These are just These are the proportion. These are just the distribution along of the different kind of positions along the different years from 2005 to 2021. So this is just statistics or general statistics of astronomy. And here they give us the gender statistics of and in the Chilean, this was given by the Chilean Astronomical Society. This is overall at all universities. And at full positions is 20% are female. At postdoc positions are 31%, PhD students 46%, and master students 45%. So we see that there are different proportions. And by the way, the figure shows how many people are there, and they show a good proportion. And as usual, the young ones are the ones that are of the higher proportion, higher figures. That is some. Now we come to my country, and I could not obtain dependable data, in the sense that if I go to different websites of institutions, I find that 20% are women. In a study by Arechaga, she found that what's the proportion that you see? That 22% are women, and of those, 73% are members or candidates of this productivity reward. And another source of information is a Mexican astrophysical network that disseminates information on the web, astronomical information. And so whoever is listed, that I could find out that the 29% are women. That means that many of them are young women, young students. So we don't even know what's the proportion of women in different positions in Mexico. But we have some idea of productivity research awards. There's a fraction that have no reward, no awards for productivity, some that are candidates, some that are at the lower level, at the middle level, at the third level, and then the emeritus ones, which are those that are the oldest ones that are already being retired. So in there, you can see that the proportion of women is very high. That's very interesting because in the, let's see, if we go from the left to the right, we are increasing the level of productivity. And then the young people are on the left side. However, you can see that the emeritus ones have a 45% of presence of women. So it's something is skewed there, but it's very interesting and very hopeful, and we're very happy about that, I must say. Okay, let's go to the next one. In my country, 3 minutes, women have led governing bodies of scientific organizations in the most important scientific organizations in the country. They have been part of the board of governing bodies of the American Astronomical Society, Astronomical Society of the Pacific. They have been founders and edition of the Revista Mexicana de Astronomía y Astrofísica. And but moreover, they have been recognized by the community. So they have named after them libraries, planetariums, laboratories, mathematical contests, and an insect. An insect has been named by the name of a woman astronomer in my country. They have received important awards. Women in Mexico have received important awards. UNESCO Kalinga Prize, from the Mexican Academy of Science Prize, the National Prize for Science and Arts, L'Oreal UNESCO Prize, Hans Bethe Prize of American Physical Society, the World Academy of Science Medal, Bloomberg Roberts Award, and many others, many of lower level, but important, of course. And they have received honorary degrees from different institutions in Mexico and outside Mexico, and they are members of very prestigious organizations. In Venezuela, the figures that they gave me were that the people that have studied in the country, 26 were women and men 30. And presently working in Venezuela, there are 2 women and 1 man. So it's not very hopeful in that. But they have had various prizes and significant positions held by women in Venezuela and outside Venezuela. So I think this is a very important result, and I'm very pleased that they have these several prizes and recognitions. In Uruguay, there's only one institution, Universidad de la República, and here are the figures for emeritus, full professors, associate, and assistants, and PhD students. So there are altogether several women. The conclusions. It's very difficult to conclude in statistics that are of very different level and very different presentation. But in general, the lower the level, the higher the proportion of women. The lower the level, and also I would say the younger, oops. No, come on. What would be my conclusions? Well, what would be my conclusions? The lower the level, the higher proportion of women, but that usually corresponds to younger women. So the younger women are moving there, are getting there, and will eventually get to higher positions. There have been great achievements in the different countries. Women astronomers are well recognized. But there's still a long way to go. I think we really need to impact the young students to follow STEM careers, among many other activities that we really have to induce younger women to go into science and astronomy. Well, thank you, and sorry for this complication. Thank you.
I think you really confirm with all those statistics, the results that we have been getting also from Latin America, actually. And it really goes well with your presentation. So we agree with that. I just wanted to know the statistics that you show, where you show the emeritus professors percentage going up. Was there any specific reason why this percentage goes up? I mean, because we know traditionally that at higher position, women astronomers have not been actually there. They have been very less or underrepresented. So how come this number goes up?
I don't know. I think there was an accumulation of young women that got started in the 70s. And I think this is the result of that. I'm not sure how that worked, but I'm very happy about it. That's the point.
Yes,
I should mention one more thing. There are astronomers in Colombia, but there's not one single institution. They are spread in several cities and institutions. So it's very difficult to get in contact with them and try to figure out what's the overall situation. But there are a good number of astronomers there. That's all.
Anyway, so we would like to thank again the participants, the astronomers from Latin America, because they have been really participating in our surveys and they've been really giving a lot of input. So they are very active. So thank you very much to them, because that helps us to actually derive our statistical results and bring forward the points that the problems that women astronomers are facing all over the world. So thank you again for your contribution.
Thank you.
Maybe Junga would like to take up further questions from the audience.
Question? Yes.
I thought it interesting hi, I'm Karin Menendez de Mestre from Rio de Janeiro. And I thought it was quite interesting what you showed, that Argentina, the grants seem to be pretty well balanced, but the prices were like the highest prices were not. And at least from my experience in Brazil, I had the impression that grants, they try at least to have a set of bullet points to define what success and what things are being compared, and prices, it's kind of like this general impression of how worthy this person is. And very often unconscious bias hits in very strongly. I don't know, this was like my guess why grants would be better balanced than prices. I wanted to know your opinion.
I think there are two issues that are here. We're talking about grants that are more or less in the present or in the last few years, and the prices is accumulation of lifetime work. And so a lifetime recognition, appreciation, and the general respect that one bestows to our teachers. So it's very difficult to compare one thing with the others, but those are the facts, and we have to understand them to try to disclose what is behind everything. But I think that's interesting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the audience? Okay.
Hi, Silvia. Thank you very much for your very nice presentation. I found it very interesting that in Mexico and in Brazil, you have the same tendency to have women, a large proportion of women in the fellowship of the emeritus, as you show. I was thinking, why that? I am afraid that there was a period where you had more women in research that grow up in their career. But I am afraid that in the future, since we don't have this big number at the beginning of the career, we might go down. What is your understanding of this, or what do you think?
Well, yes, it's complicated because the positions, the open positions that are available, are very limited. So it's very difficult that we will change significantly these ratios. The number of positions is very limited, so it's not going to change in great proportion. And so, but I think it's interesting that we have similar ways of recognizing the merit, the productivity, and we have similar trends in how they behave with gender. And
Thank you
time.
very much.
Okay, thank you. This is the last question of this talk. Thank you, Silvia.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. We have to move to move on next talk. Yeah. Next talk will be, yeah. Okay, Mamta. Okay. You can say.
Yeah, next talk is from Professor Annapurni Subramaniam. And she is the director of Indian Institute of Astrophysics in Bangalore in India. And she's going to talk about career stories, problems, and efforts in India to achieve gender balance in astronomy, something on which I think we had already our first talk kind of focused on. So let's see what's going on in India. So Professor Subramaniam, would you like to take over?
Yeah, thanks for giving Mamta and Priyan to have permission to share my screen. Yes, yeah. I hope if there is any issue with my audio or my slides not visible, please let me know because my internet might be slightly jerky. So do let me know. So actually, I'm not going to present statistics, but I'm going to talk about something regarding what as an institute has over the years, where yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I am the director of the Indian Institute of Astrophysics, and I'm the first woman director of this institute. And this has actually completed 50 years. And should I go to the full screen mode, or is this all right?
I would request to go in full screen mode, please.
Okay, because there was some issue when I went to the full screen mode. Just let me try it out. Just kind of taking time to display. So is that all right? No.
Yes, it's all right, but we don't see the screen.
My connection is just not having my video. I'll just go to full screen and share. Yeah, I think it's all right now. I think. Yeah, so I hope you can hear me. So this, so we completed 50 years. So as Indian Institute of Astrophysics. So as part of that, our gender committee, consisting of Aruna Goswami, Maheshwar Gopinathan, and Ravinder Kumar Banyal, put together a book of women astronomers contributing to the institute and its growth. So this book is already out, and we added actually a couple of more stories, and the print is out now. And this was in fact released by, we go to the next page. Yeah. Ewine van Dishoeck on 30th of March, 2021. So this book has articles from 50 women astronomers of IAA on their career journey. So all are from IAA, large age range include former and current members. This is part of the Golden Jubilee celebrations of the Indian Institute of Astrophysics. A few more articles were added in the last few months to make it 50 women. And there are many more women who are part of IAA, but not part of this book as well. So this can be taken from here. So now these people have conveyed what their work is like and what they actually have contributed to astronomy as well as their personal feedback on various things. So I'm using this book as a case study for an organization with women astronomers for the 50 years, and what from their point of view was helpful. And it is important for the organization to continue the same streak and continue to provide a good environment for women to perform and survive. For that matter, I should also say that I joined as a student in the same institute in 1990 and continued my journey as a researcher, as a student, then a visiting fellow, and then a faculty, and then grew up to become the director of that institute. So I am a homegrown product from that point of view. So I've seen the institute's environment for the last 30 years or so, but then to see what contributed and continue to actually keep women and as what women feel being part of this organization, and that is what is important for the organization to keep it alive, to move forward. So I would like to share the insights I gained from reading the articles, and I has been inclusive all along and continue to do so. So it'll be interesting to see how an organization can achieve this and sustain it. So many articles capture how they got into science and astronomy as well. So you can see from forward. So she's the e-book, which we actually modified. I mean, added a few more things and completed and made the print as well. So she says that the stories in this booklet are heartwarming. They illustrate the hurdles that female astronomers had to overcome, but also their passion and love for the night sky. So this is not only as an inspiration for the new generations, but also talk about what their life is and what the organization is, etc. So, I've taken a few clips from here. So this is Preeti was a student, and currently she is a faculty at the Center for Radio Astrophysics, Pune, and she also did a lot of work as part of the women group of gender equity as per the Astronomical Society of India.
Maybe we've lost a connection. Yes.
And for that, actually, I did, I hope you can hear me. I did a talk just an hour ago before joining this meeting to a working group in UV astronomy. That went well without any problem, but sorry, I'm not sitting in a absolutely comfortable place. I'm sitting in a accommodation in Delhi before another meeting, so sorry about it. So she says that I stood, I never felt alone in terms of my gender. And this is because IA had still has the highest fraction of women students as well as faculty members at Astrophysics Institutes in India. This diverse environment comes with a culture of acceptance and the realization that scientists like science comes in all shapes and sizes. So that's an extremely important thing. So acceptance of who you are and culture of acceptance is an extremely important keyword, which is the takeaway from me. And IA's inclusive culture extends to its remote observatories. I have carried out observations at the Kavlar Observatory as well as the remote observatory at Hoskote. So for me as a growing up astronomer, I have seen women going to take observations from remote observatories, staying over there overnight. So that actually has given me confidence that I can also do it when we go through our formative years and also through our family life where children are small, etc., etc. So I think two things. One, you see people doing it, you actually see that you can also do it. Sometimes women, we also have a little bit of hesitancy to take up things which, maybe that you don't want to show that you fail in something you want to do. But so that confidence build-up is very important. And seeing someone in front of you doing the same thing makes actually you feel that you feel that you can do it, and raises your confidence levels. So what she says is, in the future, IAA must continue to appreciate such inclusive working environment and recognize the role played by its diverse scientists in making it so. So without conscious awareness and efforts, such an inclusive environment or the relatively healthy gender fraction of IAA could easily slip away. That's a very important point. And currently, 1/4 of IA's faculty members are women, with the largest number of astrophysics in the institute in the country. IA is the best position to nudge this ratio towards the 1/2 and create a truly gender equitable institution in India. Hopefully, others will follow. So that's a very important step. And for me, to make sure that we continue the same environment, the diversity and the culture of acceptance, and move towards a larger fraction of women to the right gender balance is extremely important. I moved to Vagishwari. She was a librarian, and she says that she was the first one who was part of the Indian Institute of Astrophysics when it changed from, it was at Kodaikanal then, not at Bangalore, and it actually, previously it was Kodaikanal Observatory or Observatory Kodaikanal, and became Indian Institute of Astrophysics. So she was practically the only woman on campus. So this hardly made any difference because I'm an integral part of the group of newly appointed scientists. Some of them became my close friends and were collaborated in some of the projects. So acceptance is what you see here. So acceptance is a person, not as part of the gender. So she was able to, be part of the whole group without even getting noticed that what gender you are in. So that was very important. Another astronomer who's also superannuated and not with us is, she's there as a retired scientist, but contributing, not as a regular faculty. She says that IA has a work atmosphere that is conducive to research. I cherish the academics' freedom here. Proposals for financial requirements for equipment were taken seriously without bias. And she also was able to discuss with peers, and because she was actually a senior person, but had a lot of younger collaborators. So she did not feel anything. So inclusiveness again is very important, and also taking care of proposals without a gender bias. So that is another thing which she felt was important. So any step you take, you need to make sure that there is an inclusiveness here. This is Vinod Kishan. She was a former dean, and she says that she became part of every activity in institute, whether it was a turning over of the 2-meter blank, or the furnishing of the guest house, or selection of staff and the students for the growing institute. So it also makes important that women being part of all activities. So you at all levels, you feel that women are part of the committee, part of the activity, etc. So it is not just in certain areas you introduce or part of the activity of the institute, but in every respect, and the same person participating in multiple roles as well. So that helps to do two things. One, that feeling of or having used to women members in all sorts of committees, and second, the fact that women can do multiple things, from routine to kind of very skillful as well as technically advanced things as well. So another important thing which she's mentioning is that there is no big brothers watching, no one breathing down your neck. The only limit was your own imagination. So it's not that someone keeps monitoring you and saying that you need to do this, you need to do that, etc. But I also should mention that these are probably the feeling which are done in the last 20 years or so. Before last decade. So their time was before that. So in the last 10 decades, things have actually changed, and the pressure has built up more, and the framework has slightly changed. So I will also come to the younger generation in the next few slides. So she says that although I joined IA as the first woman astrophysicist, soon only the astrophysicist remained. The very fact that the student, this is what I mentioned, that I grew up as a student of the institute and now I've become the director. So that gives a lot of confidence that you can actually get nurtured in the same institute and grow up as well. So this is the feedback from or article from Annapurni. She actually broke the glass ceiling recently by becoming the first president of the Astronomical Society of India. So again,
the numbers are not healthy, but then at least now the women scientists were there. So that actually, with most of them being observers, really helped to the observing scientists to grow more. So this is another feedback from another successful woman scientist, which I produced, Swara Ravindranath. She is at STSCI, and she is the JWST nearest instrument scientist. And she says that the institute has been a leader with respect to gender diversity. So when she joined, there were a significant number of women astronomers, postdocs, and research students. So that says that people were at all levels, in spite of the fact that astronomy was not a common career path. So there is no bias as such, which is been seen over the years, but this is basically based on her experience. So you need to have career-oriented and passionate women astronomers, as Ewine was also mentioned. You need to have be passionate about what you're doing. So that actually helps to motivate and enrich the culture, as well as the success of the astronomy as institution as well. So the contribution the women are making to make the institution successful, that also is extremely important. Now, Annapurna, she's a current engineer, and she is an electrical department. She is actually the heading the electrical section in the headquarters. So we have a woman engineer heading the electrical section, and she's saying that I'm seeing leaders make more concerted effort to offer women opportunities, mentorship, and challenges, and most importantly, reinforcing feedback to help accelerate their career and recognize their contribution. So she feels that constant feedback and constant mentoring are very important in things. And she feels that one more thing she adds is that training women for leadership positions and allowing them to embrace their own leadership style would be a welcome step. So that would mean that, as someone asked, how do you train for women for leadership positions? Now, the point is that you can't have a clear leadership position training program, but then if a certain skill set is required, so we send people for training in those particular sections as specifically. But it's important that whenever an opportunity is there for leading a certain activity or taking charge of a certain program, it's important that you give women a chance, so that they take, they are able to show up there or bring out their leadership style to actually contribute as well as move in that position. So training, doing is training kind of a thing. So at the same time, we also see that sometimes women take little hesitance in taking up a position. Yes, Mamta?
2 minutes. Yes, you have 2 minutes. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah, I'm almost there. Yeah. So to take up the willingness and to take it up. So you always kind of feel that what happens if I fail? It may not be seen as a good step, but I don't think that kind of hesitancy is there for men. So it's important for women to overcome that hesitancy and take up whenever there's a opportunity coming along. So there are also things which happen in India where support is provided by the Department of Science and Technology, and they give fellowships. And one such student is Geetanjali. She got married and she moved to IIT Kanpur. Then she took a break. But she says that now I had to take a break due to family reasons. I made a comeback to the field with GST's VOSA scheme in 2018. So India does have supporting schemes where women can come back, and she's one of those people, and she's working on certain proposals as mentioned here. We have several students who completed their masters in technology followed by a PhD, and they actually join together, write an article, and they also talk about what happens regarding gender activities of the gender cell, activities of working environment and workplace, etc. But with newer and newer people coming in, the generation moving along and newer people coming in, there has to be balance all the time, and also communication and awareness to be transpired to them all the time. So working with students, they helped us actually to get a questionnaire, circulate and identify regions where we need to address. They have pointed out a lot of things regarding the environment, so that we are trying to implement as part of the gender cell. The important points that emerge is that there are women members as part of the organization at all levels over the last 5 decades. So that's extremely interesting for the organization. And this trend has to not only continue, but grow. They are part of a wide range of activities in the Institute, cutting edge to routine, and a very important point to adopt for an inclusive culture and to make sure that they are contributing at all levels. Women members are passionate and serious astronomers. That sends a huge message to the younger generation. Irrespective of their fame, success, background, etc., all of them, they have been role models all along for the future generations. So if you see at all generations, all the 5 decades, people who became astronomers have seen the generation before them. So that has been a growth factor. For the organization to sustain the same culture, continue hiring women and consciously making them part of activities at all levels is highly important. Should encourage diverse environment as well as a culture of acceptance. So it's not like there are no preferred the way you do this, etc. All sorts of things are there, but as long as you are performing that acceptance, the culture of acceptance is extremely important. The Institute has produced women in leadership roles, and it has to continue to do so as well. So that's all from my side. And this is the last, the cover picture of that book. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Right. So it is good to see that the Indian government is having started this women scholarship programs and helping women to come back to the career after the career breaks, which is a very crucial phase in their career actually. So this is very good, and I hope this will help to have more women in research institutes, and which many countries actually don't have still. So that's the good thing.
Yeah, actually, this has been there for last 20 years or 25 years or so. But there are more programs which are come up now from SERB, and that's another funding wing of the Department of Science and Technology. That is the Power Fellowship as well as Power Grants. This is exclusively for women scientists.
Thank you. We have a question from Silvia.
I think there's a question.
Yes, I have a comment rather. I think it's very interesting that you have created this book and picked up all the experiences of these women. And I think it's very valuable because times are changing. Things will change, hopefully, to the better. But it's good to have some history and some idea of what has happened. What were the conditions when they were students? What are the conditions now? So that future generations will have information. I think it's very, very valuable effort. That's my comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? If not, then we will move to the next speaker because we are short in time. Thank you very much, Professor Subramaniam.
Thank you.
Right, so let's go to the next speaker of the session. And we have the next speaker, who is Suzana. And she is Filipecki Martins, and she is working with the IAU Office of Outreach. So OAO, they are very active. And she's also a very energetic lady. So she is going to talk about women and girls in astronomy events that was organized with the IAU Women in Astronomy Working Group and OAO office. So Suzana, please take over.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for having me. My name is Suzana. I am a medium height person. I have brown hair. I wear glasses. My preferred pronouns is she and her. I try to be really fast because I have to run out of the room in like 5 minutes for a photo op. So if I speak too fast, if you don't understand, just interrupt me right away. I also don't like the sound of my own voice, so let's try to have a conversation as much as possible. So I'm here to talk, I'm the International Outreach Officer for the Office for Astronomy Outreach. I'm here to talk how we designed the activities for the Women and Girls in Astronomy IAU Global Project for the 2022 edition. So quickly, I wanted to introduce, sorry, what's happening here? Oh, maybe, okay, so I wanted to quickly introduce what is the Office for Astronomy Outreach and what are the IAU Global Outreach projects, of which the Women and Girls in Astronomy is one of them. So the OAO is one of the 4 offices. It's really good that I spoke after Ewine, because you kind of already got an introduction there of what we do and who we are. Our main goal is to communicate and engage the public with astronomy, and we do that through 3 main strains of work. We work with the IAU outreach activities that include managing the social media channels. We work with professional development, including publications and conferences. And we work with the implementation of the IAU global projects and initiatives, and they are implementing through diverse networks of astronomy-related professionals. So we have a booth on the 3rd floor, by the way. If you want to talk more about the OAO, please find me there. I'm there a lot, and I'm very passionate about our activities. Please, let's continue this conversation. So a quick introduction about our global outreach projects. So there are international initiatives endorsed by the IAU. They take place annually. They usually take place around, this is so annoying. The UNESCO endorsed day, so kind of like the Day of Light. And they are implemented by independent organizations and practitioners. So we don't implement them ourselves. And they take place annually. So Women and Girls is one, but we also have a few that Ewine already share with you. The Telescopes for All, 100 Hours of Astronomy, Dark and Quiet Skies. So what is the Women and Girls in Astronomy project? It's a project that takes place annually between the International Day of Women and Girls in Science on 11th of February and the International Day of Women on 8th of March. I'm sorry, this mask keeps falling, so annoying. And the project wants to recognize the role of women in advancing science and encouraging girls to consider a career in astronomy. Of course, this is a broad goal. This could be done in many ways. How did we decide to do this year? What are the guiding principles for the design of our activities? So we decided to go back to the source, and if I had more time, I would explain why this is the source, but it refers to the gender gap research that Ewine mentioned as well. It was a big research done in collaboration with a similar institution for math and for physics, if I'm not mistaken. And within this research, which is something that the IAU was an active part of, they use this project called the UNESCO STEM and Gender Advancement, SAGA project, as a reference. So we went from our, the IAU strategic action to the gender gap project to this reference that they use throughout the study. And it was a project that started in 2015. It was financed also by the ministry, by the Swedish government, and basically wanted to address the gender equality in science, technology, and innovation, STIs. I prefer the term STEM, but. And it really aims to offer government and policymakers to help them reduce the gender gap in STI fields. We produced very interesting tools. A very comprehensive toolkit for policymakers was one of them. But for us, the most invaluable one was the SAGA Science, Technology, Innovation Gender Objective List, or STI Goal, which is basically a tool for categorizing STI policies and indicators, right? It helps organize, to measure if each area or each action which governments need to address or take more action. For us, it was very interesting because it has this very comprehensive 7 points, and within the 7 points, there are actually more detailed sub-points. So the first one addresses changes in perception and attitudes. The second is for primary and secondary school. The third for universities. The fourth for career progression. The fifth for gender dimension in research. 6 in policymaking, and the 7 towards investment and innovation and entrepreneurship. we look into this not only as a very comprehensive and helpful list, but we look into this as a way of organizing and identifying spheres where constraints and challenges towards gender inclusion in STEM or STIs take place, right? So for instance, if I look into the individual level, right, and then I call this changing of perceptions within the individual, right, the understanding of like who does STEM, right, who does astronomy, and am I a person who can do astronomy? This is the individual level. So the constraints that stop somebody who engaging with STEM careers lives in the individual. Number 2 and 3, you can understand is that within institutions where these individuals interact, so the interactional level or the interactional sphere. So within education, schools and colleges, how we communicate and teach STEM, create this barriers for people to pursue STEM careers. And in the institutional level, in the societal level, so looking to this STI goal list, we were able to understand where lies the constraint and where are the areas of actions that we could take place. So for us as an outreach organization, right, we are not a research institute, we are not policymakers. For us, our area of purview, our area that we could have strong action points is in the individual. So for us, in guiding the actions we take, how we design our attitudes, we want to change the perceptions, attitudes, behavior, social norm, and stereotypes towards women in astronomy in society. So as I said, this big number one sphere has sub-items, and the sub-items were even more helpful in terms of designing our activities. So when we were defining what we wanted to do this year, we looked, does our activity address gender bias? Does it promote visibility of women within astronomical fields? Does it mainstream gender perspective? From there, there was a list of like activities and practice that already took in place in previous years. We took this legacy, as Evina presented, that came from 2019 and the 100-year celebration, and we're building in the program and creating new activities and creating a new direction that really focus on our sphere of work. So what did we do? We created a calendar of events that is actually like visualized as a map. And they highlight the activities organized by these independent organizations, especially our NOCs, right, which are our National Outreach Coordinators. And of course, we didn't have the numbers of the 100 years, but we had great numbers with more than 250 events taking place in almost 40 countries. The second activity we developed was a variation of our Meet the Astronomer program. So the map helps highlight the gender perspective, right? Every time we say like, there is a way of doing events that we can do, and we bring in the discussion of like, it's important to talk about gender. So I forgot to mention that. The second strain of work, the live interviews and self-made videos, they help address this, highlighting the contribution of women in STEM and addressing gender stereotypes, right? Because if I have somebody like Silvia who participated in our program this year, I'm highlighting the contribution of these very important astronomers and their contribution to the field. And if I invite various numbers of astronomers to present self-made videos, little recordings where they communicate not only their research, but who they are, how they are as individuals, we're creating a diversity of like ways of being an astronomer, right? An astronomer is not only this one white dude in a lab, right? But there's various ways of being an astronomer. The third strain of work we did was to develop a social media campaign. And within the social media campaign, there were certain typologies of posts that, again, respond to these three key issues that we wanted to address. So the first typology of posts that we created help highlight historical female identifying astronomers, highlighting their contribution to the history of astronomy. The second, we highlighted also best practices and highlighted activities that outreach organizations who were organizing events, either for the project or throughout the year, could use to mainstream the gender perspective. Lastly, in collaboration with the working group, we run a contest called Draw an Astronomer. It's actually a variation of a very known activity called like Draw a Scientist, right? We just invite children mainly to like imagine what an astronomer looks like, what it does, like what they do for fun, like create a character, like they envision an astronomer and draw it. We were kind of like really surprised by the number of entries. We had almost 800 submissions from around 20 countries. And this, of course, there were some things that we expected to see, like this confusion between astronomers and astronauts. Personally, I think it's okay. They're looking up, and that's important. And also, of course, even within the context of a program called Women and Girls in Astronomy, the amount of white astronomers' drawings represented in the drawings was great. So I think I managed to keep the session on our time. I'm sorry if I spoke too fast. I wanted to quick, but please. Oh, sorry. I need to get going. I want to leave questions. So I wanted to continue this conversation with more time, without hurrying and without cutting off, but I have a few minutes for questions, and I think that's more important. If you want to continue this conversation afterwards, please visit our site, follow us on social media, or you can always contact me by email. And please let's have this time for conversation more than me presenting things. Thank you very much.